Victoria Lane's hand trembled as she aimed her husband's old revolver at the man standing in her office doorway. "One more step," she whispered, "and I'll shoot." The intruder didn't flinch. "Go ahead. But if you pull that trigger, you'll never prove your innocence, and your daughter will visit you in prison instead of Paris." 48 hours ago, Victoria was the most powerful woman on Wall Street. Now she was a fugitive framed for crimes she didn't commit, forced to trust a cold-hearted stranger who demanded she strip away everything: her designer armor, her carefully built walls, and the lies she'd been telling herself for 15 years. What she didn't know: he had his own reasons for helping her, and they had nothing to do with justice. Comment below which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The audit report hit Victoria Lane's desk at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. She remembered the exact time because she had been checking her watch, calculating how many minutes until her conference call with Tokyo. 13 minutes. 13 minutes to review quarterly projections, adjust her lipstick, and remind herself why she had sacrificed everything for this corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Then her assistant Rachel burst through the door without knocking. Rachel never burst. Rachel glided. Rachel whispered. Rachel had worked for Victoria for 11 years and had never once raised her voice above a murmur. "Mrs. Lane, it's Ms. Lane. You know that. Ms. Lane, you need to see this. Right now." Victoria took the folder, opened it, read the first page, read it again. Her blood turned to ice water. Where did this come from? External auditors. They've been investigating for 3 months. The board received copies an hour ago. 3 months? Victoria's voice cracked. Someone has been investigating my company for 3 months, and no one told me. Rachel's face said everything her words couldn't. Victoria flipped through the pages. Financial records she had never seen. Transactions she had never approved. Her signature, her actual signature on documents authorizing wire transfers to offshore accounts she didn't know existed. $23 million. Gone. Traced directly to her. This is impossible. Victoria stood so fast, her chair slammed against the window. I didn't sign these. I've never seen these accounts. Someone forged. Her phone rang. The board chairman's direct line. Victoria answered. Richard, I can explain. There's nothing to explain, Victoria. Richard Holloway's voice was cold, practiced. The voice of a man who had already made his decision. Emergency board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Your presence is required. I suggest you bring your attorney. Richard, listen to me. These documents are fake. Someone is setting me up. The FBI has been notified. They'll be at your office first thing in the morning. A pause. I'm sorry, Victoria. I really am. But the evidence is comprehensive. The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone in her hand. 15 years. 15 years of 18-hour days, missed holidays, a marriage that crumbled under the weight of her ambition, a daughter who had learned to stop expecting her mother to show up. 15 years of building Lane Industries from a startup in her garage to a Fortune 500 company. And it was all about to disappear. Rachel. Victoria's voice came out steadier than she felt. Cancel Tokyo. Cancel everything. And get me the personnel file for Marcus Webb. The CFO? Yes. Ms. Lane. Mr. Webb left for a business trip this morning. London. He's not expected back until... He's not coming back. Victoria felt the truth settle into her bones like poison. He's never coming back. 3 hours later, Victoria sat alone in her darkened office, the Manhattan skyline glittering beyond the windows like a promise that had been broken. She had called her attorney. Her attorney had called a criminal defense specialist. The criminal defense specialist had asked one question. Can you prove you didn't sign those documents? She couldn't. The signatures were perfect, not photocopied, not digitally manipulated. hand-signed with her distinctive script, the way she crossed her T's with an upward flourish, the way her V started with a sharp downstroke. Someone had studied her. Someone had practiced. Someone had spent months, maybe years, preparing to destroy her. Marcus Webb, her CFO, the man she had trusted with every financial decision for the past 8 years. The man who had cried at her birthday party last year when he gave a toast about her visionary leadership. The man who was now somewhere over the Atlantic with $23 million and her future in his pocket. Victoria scrolled through her contacts. Attorneys, bankers, politicians, celebrities. She had collected powerful friends the way other women collected shoes. And now when she needed them most, she knew exactly how much those friendships were worth. Nothing. They were worth nothing. No one would touch her now. One hint of FBI involvement and her phone would stop ringing. Her invitations would dry up. Her friends would develop sudden amnesia about ever knowing her name. She kept scrolling, past the A's, the B's, the C's. Her thumb stopped on a name she barely remembered adding. Ethan Cross. Victoria frowned, trying to place him. A conference in Chicago. 3 years ago. 4. He had been a speaker. Forensic accounting. She remembered being bored, checking her email during his presentation, glancing up occasionally. But she also remembered what someone had whispered to her afterward. That man is terrifying. He found a $12 million fraud that 3 major firms missed. Exposed a senator, a hedge fund manager, and a nonprofit director. The nonprofit director killed himself rather than face trial. At the time, Victoria had thought, I never want to be on the wrong side of that man. Now she thought, I need to be on the right side of him. She pressed call before she could change her mind. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. This is Cross. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Low, measured, cold enough to freeze fire. Mr. Cross, this is Victoria Lane. We met briefly at the Chicago Financial Forum a few years ago. I don't know if you remember. I remember. You were checking your email during my presentation. Victoria winced. I apologize for that. What do you want, Ms. Lane? No small talk, no pleasantries, just straight to the point. Under other circumstances, she might have appreciated that. I'm in trouble, serious trouble. I need someone who can examine financial records and find what kind of trouble? Embezzlement, fraud, $23 million missing, and my signature on every document authorizing the transfers. Silence. Ms. Lane, if you're calling to ask me to help you hide evidence, I'm calling because I'm innocent. Victoria heard her voice crack and hated herself for it. Someone framed me. Someone spent months, maybe years planning this. I have 48 hours before the FBI shows up at my door. If I can't find proof that I'm being set up, I'll lose everything. My company, my freedom, my... She stopped herself from saying daughter. Everything. Another silence. Longer this time. Why should I believe you? Because I have nothing to gain by lying to you, and because you're the only person I know who might actually find the truth. Victoria held her breath. The clock on her desk ticked. Somewhere in the building, a cleaning crew was vacuuming. I don't take last-minute cases, Ethan finally said. I have a daughter. I can't drop everything to... Please. The word came out before Victoria could stop it. She never said please. Please was weakness. Please was surrender. Mr. Cross. I wouldn't ask if this weren't life or death for me. I'll pay anything. Whatever your rate is, I'll triple it, quadruple it. Just, I don't care about your money, Ms. Lane. Then what do you care about? The question hung in the air. Victoria realized she was gripping her phone so hard her knuckles had turned white. Truth, Ethan said finally. I care about truth. Then help me find it, please. The silence stretched so long Victoria thought he had hung up. My daughter has a piano recital at her school tomorrow evening. I can't miss it. I understand. Do Do you actually understand what it means to put a child first? The accusation stung more than Victoria wanted to admit. I have a daughter too, she said quietly. She's 16. She's at boarding school in Switzerland. And you're right, I don't understand. I've spent 15 years putting my company first, but I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to be better. Something shifted in the silence. Victoria couldn't name it, but she felt it. Tonight, Ethan said. 9 o'clock. I have my daughter with me, so you'll have to come here. He gave her an address in Brooklyn. Bring every document you can access. Bank statements, board meeting minutes, anything with your signature from the past 3 years. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, Ms. Lane. If I find out you're guilty, I'll hand the evidence to the FBI myself. The line went dead. Victoria lowered the phone slowly. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. But for the first time since that folder had landed on her desk, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. The brownstone in Brooklyn was nothing like Victoria expected. She had imagined something cold, clinical, a minimalist apartment with white walls and steel furniture matching the frigid voice on the phone. Instead, she found herself standing on a snow-dusted stoop, staring at a warm-lit window decorated with a child's paper snowflakes. Through the glass, she could see a Christmas tree, small, slightly crooked, covered in handmade ornaments. Victoria looked down at herself. Armani suit, Louboutin heels, diamond earrings worth more than most people's cars. She had never felt more out of place in her life. The door opened before she could knock. Ethan Cross looked exactly as she remembered, and nothing like she remembered. Tall, dark hair with threads of gray at the temples, blue eyes that seemed to see straight through her. But there was something else now. Something she hadn't noticed at that conference 4 years ago. A weariness around his eyes. A guardedness in his posture. This was a man who had lost something precious. Victoria recognized the look because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. You're early, he said. I'm always early. You're also dressed like you're about to close a hostile takeover. Victoria stiffened. Excuse me. Ethan stepped aside to let her in. The security cameras at your office. They'll be reviewed once the investigation starts. If you're going back there tonight to retrieve evidence, you can't look like the CEO. Going back? Victoria stopped in the hallway, surrounded by family photos she tried not to look at. I thought we would just review the documents I brought. The documents you brought are worthless. Whoever framed you made sure of that. Ethan led her toward a small office at the back of the house. If there's evidence that proves your innocence, it's hidden somewhere you wouldn't think to look. Your office computer, archived files, server backups. But the building is closed. Security won't let Victoria Lane's CEO walk in at midnight and start downloading files. But they might not notice a cleaning woman. Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. You want me to break into my own company? I want you to save your company. There's a difference. Before Victoria could respond, a small voice called from the top of the stairs. Daddy, is someone here? Ethan's entire demeanor changed. The coldness melted. His shoulders relaxed. He looked up with an expression Victoria had seen only in photographs of fathers holding newborns, pure unguarded love. It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Daddy's just working. A girl appeared on the landing. 8 years old, maybe 9. Dark hair like her father's. Eyes that held the same serious intensity. Are you helping someone again? The girl asked. I'm trying to. The girl looked at Victoria, studied her the way her father had, then nodded, apparently satisfied. Don't forget you promised to make pancakes tomorrow. I won't forget, I promise. Pinky promise. Ethan held up his hand, little finger extended. The girl bounded down the stairs, just long enough to hook her finger around his, then disappeared back into the darkness. I'm sorry, Victoria said, unsure why she was apologizing. I didn't mean to disturb her. Lily notices everything. gets that from her mother. Something flickered across Ethan's face. Pain, old and familiar. Her mother, she died 5 years ago. Victoria didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, felt inadequate. That must have been hard, felt patronizing. So she said nothing, just stood there in this warm house full of handmade ornaments and family photos, and felt the weight of everything she had sacrificed for success. Ethan seemed to appreciate the silence. He nodded toward his office. Let's get to work. An hour later, Victoria's head was spinning. Ethan had spread her documents across his desk, the floor every available surface. He moved through them with methodical precision, occasionally asking questions that made Victoria realize how little she understood about her own company's finances. This transaction here, March 15th. You authorized a transfer of $847,000 to a consulting firm called Meridian Partners. I don't remember that. Your signature is on the authorization. I sign hundreds of documents every week. My CFO prepared them. I trusted. Victoria stopped herself. I trusted Marcus. That was your first mistake. Ethan held up another document. Meridian Partners is a shell company, incorporated in Delaware 6 years ago. No employees, no physical address, no website. How do you know that? Because I've seen this pattern before. Ethan's jaw tightened. Money flows from legitimate company to shell company. Shell company transfers to offshore account. Offshore account disappears into a maze of international transactions that take years to untangle. Can you prove I didn't know about this? Not with what you've brought me. We need the original files, the metadata, the server logs that show who actually created these documents and when. Victoria stared at the papers scattered around her. 15 years of work, 15 years of sacrifice, reduced to forgeries and shell companies, and a trap she had walked into with her eyes wide open. Why? She whispered. Why would Marcus do this to me? Money, power, revenge. Ethan shrugged. Does it matter? It matters to me. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, not quite sympathy, but close. Then let's find out. He disappeared into another room. When he returned, he was carrying a stack of clothes. These belong to my sister. She stays here sometimes when she visits from Boston. They should fit. Victoria took the stack. Jeans, a plain sweater, a puffy winter jacket that looked like it had been purchased at Target. I can't wear these. You can and you will, unless you'd prefer an orange jumpsuit. Victoria looked at the clothes in her hands, then at her Armani suit. The fabric was Italian, hand-stitched, custom-fitted to her measurements. She had worn this suit to board meetings, to negotiations worth hundreds of millions of dollars, to dinners with senators and governors, and once memorably, a former president. This suit was her armor. Her identity. The proof that the girl who had grown up in a trailer park in rural Ohio had made something of herself. Without this suit, who was she? Please. The word came out broken, vulnerable. Please don't make me undress. I need to keep this suit on. It's the only thing making me feel like I'm still in control. Ethan went still. For the first time since she had arrived, his eyes softened. Just slightly. Just enough. Ms. Lane. His voice was gentler than she had heard it. The woman who built Lane Industries from nothing didn't need a designer suit to be powerful. She needed intelligence, determination, guts. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. That woman feels very far away right now. Then let's bring her back. Ethan stepped closer, not touching her, just present. The suit doesn't make you powerful. You make you powerful. And right now you need to be invisible. Just for tonight. Just long enough to save everything you've built. Victoria looked at the clothes in her hands, the cheap fabric, the unfamiliar weight. Then she looked at Ethan, at his serious eyes, at the photo on his desk of a woman with a kind smile and a little girl with chocolate on her face. He understood loss. He understood sacrifice. And somehow impossibly he believed she might be innocent. Where can I change? A flicker of something crossed Ethan's face. Relief, respect. Bathrooms down the hall. Leave your jewelry here, all of it. We can't risk any part of you being recognized. Victoria nodded, walked down the hall, closed the bathroom door. And for the first time in 15 years, she looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. The woman who emerged from Ethan Cross's bathroom 20 minutes later was not Victoria Lane. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her face was bare of makeup. The jeans fit slightly loose, and the sweater had a small hole near the collar that she hadn't noticed until she put it on. She looked ordinary, invisible, like a woman you would pass on the street without a second glance. It was terrifying. It was liberating. Better, Ethan said, not quite smiling. Now you look like someone who might actually survive tonight. Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to point out that she had survived just fine for 15 years in designer suits and high heels. But she didn't, because some part of her, some small, quiet part that she had silenced years ago, knew he was right. Let's go, she said. Ethan grabbed his coat, then paused. There's something you should know before we do this. What? He turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. 5 years ago, my wife was investigating a series of companies for securities fraud. She was an investigator with the SEC. Brilliant, thorough, the best I've ever known. Victoria felt a chill that had nothing to do with the December night. The day before she was supposed to present her evidence, she died in a car accident. The official report called it an accident. Black ice. Poor visibility. Ethan's voice hardened. But I know it wasn't an accident, and I've spent 5 years trying to prove it. Why are you telling me this? Because the patterns in your company's financial statements match techniques I've seen before. Shell companies, offshore accounts, forged authorizations. Ethan's eyes met hers. The same techniques that were used in the companies my wife was investigating. Victoria felt the floor shift beneath her feet. You think there's a connection? I think someone very powerful is operating a network of financial fraud across multiple companies, Chbiye said. I think your CFO was part of that network, and I think they're trying to make you disappear the same way they made my wife disappear. Victoria's mouth went dry. They killed her. You think they killed her and made it look like an accident? Yes. And you think they might? She couldn't finish the sentence. I think we need to be very careful tonight. Ethan opened the door. Cold air rushed in. And I think you need to decide right now whether you trust me, because once we walk out this door, there's no going back. Victoria looked at this man she barely knew. This cold, serious man with sad eyes and a daughter who made him pinky promise about pancakes. She should be terrified. She should call her lawyer. She should go home and lock her door and wait for the FBI like a good citizen. Instead, she stepped out into the snow. Let's go save my company, she said. And maybe along the way we'll find out what really happened to your wife. Ethan nodded once. Something passed between them. Not quite trust, not yet. But the beginning of an alliance forged in desperation and loss. They walked into the night together. Two broken people with nothing left to lose. And somewhere in the darkness, someone was watching. The snow fell harder as Ethan drove through the empty Manhattan streets. Victoria sat in the passenger seat. Her fingers twisted together in her lap, watching the city she had conquered pass by like a stranger's dream. Stop fidgeting, Ethan said without looking at her. You look guilty. I am guilty. Of being stupid enough to trust Marcus Webb for 8 years. That's not a crime, that's being human. Victoria turned to look at him. His profile was sharp against the glow of passing streetlights. Jaw set, eyes forward, hands steady on the wheel. "You don't seem like the type who trusts easily," she said. "I'm not anymore." "Because of your wife." Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Because of a lot of things." They drove in silence for another block. Victoria wanted to ask more about Elena, about what happened, about why he had spent 5 years chasing ghosts instead of moving on with his life. But she didn't, because she recognized that kind of grief, the kind that lived in your bones, the kind that became part of who you were. "Your daughter," Victoria said instead. "Lily. She seems—" "What?" "Wise, for her age." Something softened in Ethan's expression. "She's had to grow up fast. When your mother dies and your father becomes obsessed with finding answers, you learn to take care of yourself." "That's not fair to her." "No, it's not." Ethan glanced at Victoria. "But life isn't fair, Ms. Lane. I thought you of all people would understand that." Victoria thought about Sophia, 16 years old, alone in Switzerland, learning to take care of herself because her mother was too busy building an empire. "I understand better than you know," she said quietly. They pulled into an alley 2 blocks from Lane Industries headquarters. Ethan killed the engine and turned to face her. "Here's how this works. The cleaning crew arrives at midnight. They enter through the service entrance on 47th Street. You're going to walk in with them. They'll recognize me." "No, they won't." Ethan pulled a laminated badge from his jacket pocket. Victoria stared at it. A cleaning company ID with her photo, but different. Hair darker. No makeup. Glasses she didn't wear. "How did you—" "I've been doing this a long time, Ms. Lane. Now listen carefully. You have exactly 47 minutes. That's how long the cleaning crew spends on each floor before moving up. You need to get to your office, access the backup server, and download everything from the past 3 years. Everything? Everything. Emails, financial records, board meeting recordings. If Marcus Webb left any trace of what he was really doing, it'll be buried in data you never thought to look at." Victoria took the badge. Her hands were shaking. "What if someone catches me?" "Then you're a confused cleaning woman who got lost. Keep your head down. Don't make eye contact. And whatever you do, don't speak. Your voice is too distinctive." "And if that doesn't work?" Ethan reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small black device. "This is a panic button. Press it once, I'll create a distraction. Press it twice. I'll come get you myself." Victoria took the device. It was warm from his hand. "You'd really come for me, even if it meant getting caught yourself." Ethan's eyes met hers. In the darkness of the car, they seemed almost black. "I told you, Ms. Lane, I care about truth. And right now the truth is locked inside that building." Victoria slipped the panic button into her pocket. Opened the car door. The cold hit her like a slap. "Victoria," Ethan said. She turned back. He had never used her first name before. "Be careful." Something flickered between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. "I will," she said, and disappeared into the snow. The service entrance was exactly where Ethan said it would be. Victoria joined a group of cleaning workers, mostly older women, mostly immigrants, most too tired to notice another face in the crowd. She kept her head down, followed the flow of bodies through security, pressed her fake badge against the scanner and held her breath. The light turned green. She was in. The building felt different at night. The marble floors that usually clicked under her heels now squeaked under cheap sneakers. The elevator that normally whisked her to the executive suite now crawled upward, stopping at every floor to let workers on and off. Victoria counted the floors. 18, 19, 20, 21. She stepped off alone. The executive floor was dark, except for emergency lighting. Victoria's office was at the end of the hall, behind a door that required both a key card and a personal code. She swiped her badge, punched in her code. Nothing happened. Victoria's heart stopped. They had already locked her out. The board must have revoked her access the moment they received that audit report. She was trapped. Everything she needed was 20 feet away behind a door that wouldn't open. Then she remembered. The emergency code. The one she had set up years ago when she was paranoid about being locked out during a hostile takeover attempt. The one that only she knew about. Victoria punched in the numbers. 0815. Her daughter's birthday. The only personal thing she had ever allowed into her professional life. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Victoria stepped into her office and felt like she was walking into her own grave. Everything was exactly as she had left it 12 hours ago. Coffee cup on the desk. Orchid on the windowsill. Family photo, the only one she kept here, showing a younger Victoria with a baby Sophia in her arms. She had been happy in that photo. She had been present. She had been a mother. When had she stopped? Victoria shook off the thought. She didn't have time for regret. She had 43 minutes to save her life. The backup server was hidden behind a panel in her private bathroom. Another paranoid precaution from the early days when she had learned that corporate espionage was as common as coffee breaks. Victoria pried open the panel and connected her laptop to the server. The download started immediately. 3 terabytes of data. Financial records. Emails. Board meeting recordings. Personnel files. Everything Lane Industries had ever documented. Somewhere in this ocean of information was the proof she needed. The smoking gun that would expose Marcus Webb and whoever he was working for. She just had to find it before the FBI found her. The download progress bar crept forward. 5%, 10%, 15%. Victoria watched the numbers climb and tried to breathe. That's when she heard footsteps. Not the soft shuffle of cleaning crews, not the distant hum of vacuum cleaners. Hard soles, deliberate pace, coming straight toward her office. Victoria killed the laptop screen. Pressed herself against the wall. Her hand found the panic button in her pocket. 1 press for a distraction. 2 for Ethan himself. The footsteps stopped outside her door. Victoria held her breath. Her heart was pounding so loud she was sure whoever was out there could hear it. The door handle turned. Victoria pressed the panic button once. Nothing happened. She pressed it again, twice, 3 times. The door swung open. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across her desk, her chair, the window behind her. Victoria pressed herself flatter against the wall. The bathroom door was 6 inches from her shoulder. If she could just slip inside, close the door, wait for the guard to leave. "I know you're here, Ms. Lane." The voice froze her blood. She knew that voice. "Richard." Victoria stepped out of the shadows, squinting against the flashlight's glare. "Richard, what are you doing here?" Richard Holloway, chairman of the board, lowered his flashlight. His face was unreadable. "I could ask you the same question." "I came to get evidence. Someone is framing me, Richard. Marcus Webb has been embezzling money and forging my signature, and I can prove it if you just give me a chance to. I know about Marcus." Victoria stopped mid-sentence. "You... no." Richard moved into the office, closing the door behind him. In the dim light, he looked older than Victoria remembered. Tired. Defeated. "I've known for 2 years. I just didn't know how deep it went until yesterday." Victoria felt the ground shift beneath her feet. 2 years. You knew for 2 years, and you didn't tell me? "I couldn't. They had things on me, Victoria. Things that would destroy my family, my marriage, my reputation." Richard's voice cracked. "I thought I could manage it. Thought I could keep them contained while I figured out how to get free. But they were always 3 steps ahead." "They, who is they?" Richard laughed bitterly. "You really don't know, do you? Even after everything Marcus did, you still don't understand what you're caught up in. Then explain it to me." Richard shook his head. "It's too late for explanations. They're coming for you, Victoria. Not just the FBI, that's just the public face. There are people who will make sure you never testify. People who will make sure the truth stays buried. Like what happened to Ethan Cross's wife. The name hit Richard like a bullet. He staggered back. How do you know that name? Because I'm working with him. Because he's helping me find the truth about what happened to me and to Elena Cross. Richard's face went pale. No, you can't work with him. You don't understand what he's opened up, what he's making them remember. What are you talking about? Elena Cross was the closest anyone ever got to exposing them. She had evidence, names, account numbers, everything. Richard's hands were shaking. They killed her for it, made it look like an accident. And now her husband is poking the same wounds, asking the same questions, and they're going to... He stopped. Looked at Victoria with something like pity. You're already dead, Victoria. You just don't know it yet. Victoria felt fear clawing at her throat. But underneath the fear she felt something else, something harder, stronger, rage. Then I have nothing to lose, she said. Tell me everything. Tell me who they are and what they want and how to stop them. I can't. You owe me, Richard. What? Victoria stepped forward, and Richard actually flinched back. You sat on that board for 12 years. You watched me build this company from nothing. You told me I was like a daughter to you. And the whole time you knew someone was using my company to launder money and destroy lives. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You just chose to save yourself instead of warning me. The words echoed in the empty office. Richard's shoulders slumped. Meridian Capital, he said finally. That's what they call themselves. A shadow investment group that operates through shell companies and compromised executives. They've infiltrated dozens of corporations, banks, government agencies, even law enforcement. And Marcus works for them. Marcus was one of their best. They placed him at your company 8 years ago. He spent years building your trust, learning your signatures, setting up the framework for exactly this moment. Victoria thought about all the late nights Marcus had worked by her side, the birthday parties, the holiday gifts, the tears he had shed at her success. All of it fake, all of it manufactured. Why now? She asked. Why wait 8 years to frame me? Because now you're valuable. Your company has contracts with 3 branches of the federal government. Access to defense systems, healthcare networks, financial infrastructure. Meridian wants that access. And the only way to get it was to remove you from the equation. By framing me for embezzlement. By framing you, forcing you out, and installing their own CEO, someone they control. Someone who will open doors that you never would. Victoria's mind raced. Who are they planning to install? Richard's laugh was hollow. Who do you think? The only person on your board with the qualifications and the ambition. The only person who's been positioning herself for this moment for years. Victoria felt sick. Patricia Morrison. She's been working for them since before she joined your board. Everything she's done, every vote, every recommendation, every word of support has been calculated to put her exactly where she is right now, ready to step in when you fall. The download on Victoria's laptop hit 97%. She glanced at the screen, then back at Richard. Why are you telling me this? If they're as powerful as you say, they'll kill you too. Richard smiled sadly. They're already killing me. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed 6 months ago. I have maybe 3 months left, and I decided that I didn't want to spend them as a coward. Victoria didn't know what to say. This man had betrayed her, had known about the trap closing around her for years, and said nothing. But he was also the only person who had ever told her the truth. Help me, she said. Help me take them down. I can't. I don't have evidence. Everything I know is from conversations, implications, threats that were never recorded. Richard moved toward the door. But you have something I never had. What? Ethan Cross. He's been building a case against Meridian for 5 years. He has files, documents, connections that even I don't understand. And now he has you, someone on the inside who can finally prove what he's been saying all along. The download hit 100%. Victoria disconnected the server and grabbed her laptop. Richard, come with me. Testify. Even without evidence, your testimony could... Could what? Get me killed faster. Richard shook his head. I'm buying you time, Victoria. That's all I can do. I told security I saw a disturbance on the 3rd floor. You have maybe 10 minutes before they realize it was a false alarm. He opened the office door. The hallway beyond was still dark. Go. Find Ethan Cross. Show him what you've downloaded. And when you're ready to bring them down, Richard's voice broke. Make sure the world knows that not everyone at Lane Industries was a monster. Victoria wanted to say something. Thank you. I forgive you. Go to hell. Instead, she just nodded and ran. She made it to the service entrance with 2 minutes to spare. The cleaning crew was taking their break clustered around the loading dock with cigarettes and thermoses of coffee. No one noticed one more tired-looking woman slipping out into the snow. Ethan's car was exactly where he had left it. Victoria climbed in, clutching her laptop like a life preserver. Did you get it? Ethan asked. I got everything. 3 terabytes of data plus something else. Victoria looked at him. I know who's behind this. I know about Meridian Capital, and I know they killed your wife. Ethan went very still. Who told you? Richard Holloway, the board chairman. He's been compromised for years, but he's dying, and he decided to finally tell the truth. Victoria watched Ethan's face as she explained everything Richard had told her. Meridian Capital, Patricia Morrison, the 8-year plan to infiltrate and destroy Lane Industries. When she finished, Ethan's hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles had turned white. Elena knew, he said quietly. She knew about Meridian. She had evidence. And they killed her before she could expose them. Richard said you've been building a case for 5 years, that you have files and documents that could help prove. I have pieces, fragments, nothing that holds up in court. Ethan started the car. But if what you downloaded contains what I think it does, we might finally be able to connect the dots. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can go through this data without worrying about who's watching. They drove through the empty streets as the snow continued to fall. Victoria stared out the window thinking about everything Richard had said. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. She should be terrified. Should be planning her escape to some country without extradition treaties. Instead, she felt strangely calm, like she had finally stopped running and turned to face whatever was chasing her. Ethan, she said. Yes. That panic button you gave me. I pressed it, multiple times. Nothing happened. Ethan was quiet for a moment. I know. You know. Then why? Because I needed to know if you would press it. He glanced at her. Some people freeze when they're in danger. Some people run. And some people fight back. And what did I do? You pressed the button, but then you handled it yourself. You didn't wait for rescue. Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. That tells me something important about you, Victoria. What does it tell you? That you might actually survive this. They drove in silence for another block. Victoria noticed they were heading away from Manhattan toward Queens. Your sister, she realized. We're picking up Lily. We're making sure she's safe. Then we're going somewhere no one will think to look. Ethan's jaw tightened. This isn't just about clearing your name anymore. Meridian knows you're working with me. They'll want to neutralize both of us. Neutralize? That's a polite word for murder. I find it helps to use precise language, keeps the emotions from taking over. Victoria thought about that, about how Ethan had spent 5 years investigating his wife's murder, raising his daughter alone, building a case against people who killed without conscience. How do you do it? She asked. How do you stay so calm when you're fighting against something this big? Ethan didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. I don't stay calm. I just learned to hide it better. He looked at her. Everyone thinks I'm cold, distant, unfeeling. But the truth is, I feel everything. every lead that goes nowhere, every witness who's too scared to talk. Every night I have to tell my daughter that Daddy's still working, still trying, still failing to find justice for her mother. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. A recognition. A connection. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I've never been this scared in my life." "Good. Fear keeps you alive." Ethan turned onto his sister's street. "It's when you stop being scared that you make mistakes." They pulled up to a modest house with lights still on despite the late hour. Before Victoria could say anything, the front door opened, and a woman emerged carrying a sleeping Lily in her arms. Ethan got out of the car and crossed to them quickly. Victoria watched through the window as he spoke quietly with his sister, then took Lily into his own arms. The way he held his daughter, careful, protective, tender, made Victoria's throat tight. When was the last time she had held Sophia like that? She couldn't remember, and that broke her heart. Ethan settled Lily into the back seat, covering her with a blanket his sister handed him. The girl stirred but didn't wake. "Daddy?" she murmured. "I'm here, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." "Is the lady still with us?" "Yes, she's still here." A small hand reached out from under the blanket. Victoria, surprised, took it. Lily's fingers were warm and soft. "Don't be scared," Lily said sleepily. "Daddy always catches the bad guys." Then she was asleep again. Victoria stared at the small hand still holding hers. This child who had lost her mother, who had grown up too fast, who had learned to take care of herself, this child was trying to comfort her. Something broke inside Victoria, something that had been frozen for a very long time. She looked at Ethan, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "She's special," Victoria whispered. "She's everything," Ethan said simply. "And that's why we're going to win this. Because I refuse to let my daughter grow up in a world where people like Meridian get to destroy lives without consequences." He started the car. Victoria gently released Lily's hand and turned to face the road ahead. They were driving into danger, into uncertainty, into a fight that might cost them everything. But as the snow continued to fall and the city disappeared behind them, Victoria realized she wasn't alone anymore. And sometimes that was enough. The cabin appeared through the trees like a ghost emerging from the snow. Victoria had been dozing against the window, exhausted from adrenaline and fear, when the crunch of gravel beneath the tires jolted her awake. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "Upstate, about 3 hours from the city." Ethan killed the engine, but didn't move to get out. "This place belonged to my grandfather. I've kept it off every official record. No deed in my name, no utility bills, nothing that can be traced." Victoria looked at the small wooden structure. Smoke curled from the chimney, warm light glowing behind curtained windows. "Someone's already here." "I know." Ethan's hand moved to his jacket. "Stay in the car until I signal." "Ethan." But he was already out, moving toward the cabin with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Victoria watched him approach the door, hand inside his jacket, body coiled and ready. The door opened before he reached it. A man stepped out. Older, silver hair. A face Victoria recognized from newspaper photos and television interviews. "Daniel Brennan," she breathed. The legendary journalist. The man who had exposed 3 senators, 2 CEOs, and a sitting governor over his 40-year career. The man they called the conscience of Washington. What was he doing here? Ethan and Brennan spoke quietly for a moment. Then Ethan turned and waved toward the car. Victoria got out, then opened the back door to check on Lily. The girl was still sleeping, her small face peaceful despite the chaos swirling around her. "Leave her for now," Ethan said, appearing at Victoria's side. "She's exhausted. I'll carry her in once we're settled." Inside, the cabin was warmer than its rustic exterior suggested. A fire crackled in a stone hearth. Papers and files covered every surface: the kitchen table, the couch, the floor. Daniel Brennan stood by the fire, watching Victoria with sharp eyes, that seemed to catalog everything about her in a single glance. "Ms. Lane," he said, "I've been following your situation with great interest." "Mr. Brennan, I'm surprised to see you here." "Don't be. Ethan and I have been sharing information for 3 years." Brennan gestured toward the cluttered table. "Everything you see here is connected to Meridian Capital, shell companies, offshore accounts, suspicious deaths. It's the story I've been building my entire career toward, the one that will finally expose how deep the corruption goes." Victoria moved toward the table, picking up a document at random. A financial statement from a company she had never heard of showing transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands. "How much do you have?" she asked. "Enough to know the shape of the beast. Not enough to prove it exists." Brennan exchanged a look with Ethan. "Until tonight." Ethan had retrieved Victoria's laptop from the car. He set it on the table and opened it. 3 terabytes of data from Lane Industries' backup servers, financial records, emails, board meeting recordings, everything from the past 3 years. Brennan's eyes lit up. "You actually got it." Victoria got it. She walked into her own building, bypassed security, and downloaded everything while the FBI was preparing to arrest her. For the first time, Brennan looked at Victoria with something like respect. "That took guts, Ms. Lane." "That took desperation," Victoria corrected. "I had no choice." "There's always a choice. Most people in your situation would have called their lawyers and prayed for a deal." Brennan pulled out a chair. "Sit down. We have a lot of work to do." They worked through the night. Ethan and Brennan sorted through the downloaded files while Victoria answered questions about Lane Industries' operations, explaining financial structures and corporate hierarchies that took years to understand. Somewhere around 3 a.m., Ethan carried a still-sleeping Lily to a small bedroom at the back of the cabin. Victoria watched him tuck in his daughter, brush the hair from her forehead, whisper something too quiet to hear. When he returned, his expression was softer, more human. "She okay?" Victoria asked. "She will be. She's learned to sleep through anything." Ethan sat down heavily. "Side effect of having a father who chases monsters for a living." "Is that what you call them, monsters? What would you call people who kill to protect their secrets, who destroy innocent lives to preserve their power?" Ethan's voice hardened. "They killed Elena. They're trying to kill you. They've probably killed dozens of others we don't even know about." Brennan looked up from his laptop. "I've documented at least 17 suspicious deaths over the past decade, all connected to companies that Meridian infiltrated. Heart attacks, car accidents, suicides." His mouth twisted. "One man supposedly shot himself twice in the back of the head. The coroner ruled it suicide." Victoria felt sick. "And no one investigates?" "Who's going to investigate? Meridian has people in law enforcement, in the FBI, in Congress." Brennan shook his head. "That's why we need irrefutable evidence. The kind that can't be buried or discredited. The kind that forces even their allies to turn against them." "What about what I downloaded? Isn't that enough?" Ethan pulled up a series of documents on his screen. "This is what we've found so far. Shell companies transferring money through your accounts. Forged authorizations with your signature. Enough to prove that someone framed you." "But not enough to prove who," Brennan added. "We can show that Marcus Webb was the mechanism, but the people who controlled him, the people who actually run Meridian, they're ghosts. No names, no faces, no trail." Victoria stared at the screen, frustration building in her chest. "So I can prove I'm innocent, but I can't prove who's guilty." "Not yet." Ethan stood and moved to the window, staring out at the falling snow. "There's still the encrypted files, the ones we couldn't access at your office. If we can break that encryption, you'll find the names," Brennan finished. "The real names, the people at the top of the pyramid." "How long will that take?" Ethan turned to face her. "Days, maybe weeks." "Do you have that kind of time?" Victoria thought about the FBI warrant, the board meeting, the charges that were probably being filed against her at this very moment. "No," she said. "I don't." The silence that followed was heavy with everything they weren't saying. Victoria felt the walls closing in. Every minute that passed was another minute for Meridian to cover their tracks, destroy evidence, prepare their next move. She was running out of time, and there was nothing she could do about it. Then her phone buzzed. Victoria looked at the screen. A text message from an unknown number. "We know where you are. Leave now, or the girl dies first." Victoria's blood turned to ice. She showed the phone to Ethan without a word. His reaction was immediate. He grabbed his jacket, pulled out a weapon Victoria hadn't known he was carrying, and moved toward the bedroom where Lily was sleeping. "How did they find us?" Brennan was already gathering files, shoving them into a bag. "This place is completely off the grid." "Your phone," Ethan said to Victoria, his voice cold and flat. "They're tracking your phone. I turned off location services." "Doesn't matter. If they have access to the carrier network, they can track the signal itself." Ethan emerged from the bedroom with Lily in his arms. The girl was awake now, her eyes wide with fear. "Daddy, what's happening?" "We need to go, sweetheart. Remember what we practiced." Lily nodded solemnly and wrapped her arms around her father's neck. She didn't cry, didn't ask questions, just held on. Victoria's heart broke a little at the sight. This child had been through this before, probably many times, running in the middle of the night because her father had made powerful enemies. "How long do we have?" Victoria asked. "If they sent that message, they're probably already close. They want us scared and rushing." Ethan was moving toward the back of the cabin toward a door Victoria hadn't noticed before. "Which means we need to be smart, not fast." Brennan finished gathering his files. "I know a place. An old source of mine owns a warehouse in Albany. Completely anonymous. Paid for in cash. Can you get there without being followed?" "I've been doing this longer than you've been alive, son. I'll be fine." Brennan looked at Victoria. "Get that encryption broken. Find those names. I'll have the story ready to publish the moment you do." He was out the door before Victoria could respond, disappearing into the night with decades of evidence tucked under his arm. Ethan led Victoria and Lily through the back door down a narrow path that wound through dense trees. Victoria's sneakers, the cheap ones from Ethan's sister, crunched through frozen snow. "Where are we going?" she whispered. "There's a second car, hidden about a quarter mile from here." Ethan's voice was barely audible. "I learned a long time ago to always have an exit strategy." Lily's head was buried against her father's shoulder. Victoria could see the girl's hands trembling. "It's going to be okay," Victoria found herself saying. "Your daddy is very smart. He won't let anything happen to you." Lily lifted her head slightly. "I know. Daddy always protects me." She looked at Victoria with those two old eyes. "He'll protect you too. He promised." Victoria glanced at Ethan. He was scanning the trees, his weapon ready. His body a shield between his daughter and the darkness. He promised. When had he promised that? They reached the car, an old sedan hidden beneath a camouflage tarp. Ethan handed Lily to Victoria while he pulled off the covering and unlocked the doors. "Get in the back with her. Keep your heads down until I say otherwise." Victoria climbed in, Lily pressed against her side. The girl was shaking, but silent. Victoria put an arm around her without thinking. "You're very brave," she whispered. "I'm not brave. I'm scared." Lily's voice was tiny. "But Daddy says being brave means doing things even when you're scared." Victoria thought about that. About all the times she had been scared and pushed through anyway. The investors who said she would fail. The competitors who tried to destroy her. The husband who told her she was choosing her company over her family. She had always thought of herself as strong, fearless, untouchable. But she had never been brave. Not really. Because she had never let herself be vulnerable enough to feel fear. Until now. Ethan started the car and pulled onto a dirt road, no headlights, navigating by moonlight and memory. "Where are we going?" Victoria asked. Somewhere they won't expect. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. I have one more card to play, but it's dangerous. I need to know you're willing to see this through. I'm still here, aren't I? Being here isn't the same as being committed. What I'm planning could get us all killed. I won't do it if you're going to lose your nerve halfway through. Victoria felt anger flare in her chest. I walked into my own building while the FBI was preparing to arrest me. I gave up everything, my company, my reputation, my entire life on the chance that you could help me prove my innocence. Don't talk to me about losing my nerve. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, he almost smiled. Good. I needed to know you meant it. Meant what? That you're in this until the end, no matter what it costs. Victoria looked at Lily still pressed against her side. At Ethan, driving through the darkness with a weapon in his lap, and 5 years of grief fueling his determination. I'm in, she said. Whatever it takes. They drove for hours. Victoria lost track of time, lost track of direction. At some point, Lily fell asleep again, her head heavy on Victoria's shoulder. Victoria found herself stroking the girl's hair the way she used to stroke Sophia's when she was small, before the boarding schools, before the video calls that never lasted more than 15 minutes, before she became a stranger to her own daughter. You're good with her, Ethan said quietly. Victoria looked up. His eyes were on the road, but she could see he was watching her in the mirror. I had a daughter once. I still have a daughter, but She stopped, unsure how to explain the complicated grief of losing a child who was still alive. I wasn't there for her. I thought I was doing the right thing, building something she could be proud of, but I was just running away. Running from what? From being ordinary. From being the girl who grew up in a trailer park with a mother who worked 3 jobs and a father who wasn't around. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. I was so afraid of being small that I made myself so big I couldn't fit in my own daughter's life anymore. Ethan was silent for a long moment. The car hummed through the darkness. Elena used to say that I was afraid of being happy, he finally said. She said I was so focused on the next case, the next criminal, the next wrong to be righted, that I couldn't see the life that was right in front of me. Was she right? Probably. I've spent 5 years trying to find her killers, and in that time, I've missed Lily's first day of school, her first lost tooth, her first piano recital. His hands tightened on the wheel. I tell myself it's all for her, that I'm building a safer world for her to grow up in. But the truth is, she's growing up right now, and I'm missing it. Victoria felt something shift between them. The walls they had both built, his made of grief and obsession, hers, made of ambition and fear, seemed thinner in the darkness. Maybe we both needed this, she said. Needed what? A reason to stop running, a reason to look at what we're actually fighting for. Ethan's eyes met hers in the mirror. Something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the beginning of something neither of them was ready to name. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Ethan answered with a curt, "What?" Victoria couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she watched Ethan's face change, saw the color drain from his cheeks, saw his jaw clench so tight she thought he might crack his teeth. "When?" he asked. "How bad?" A pause. Then, "I understand. Keep me posted." He ended the call and pulled the car to the side of the road, killing the engine. "What is it?" Victoria asked. "What happened?" Ethan turned to face her. In the dim light, he looked older, broken. That was Brennan. He made it to Albany, but someone got to Richard Holloway first. Victoria's stomach dropped. Got to him. What does that mean? They found him in his office an hour ago. Heart attack officially. Ethan's voice was flat, empty. But Brennan's source says there were injection marks on his arm. Potassium chloride. Stops the heart, leaves almost no trace. Richard. The man who had betrayed her. The man who had finally told her the truth. The man who was dying anyway and had decided to spend his last months as something other than a coward. They had killed him for that. "He tried to help me," Victoria whispered. "He warned me, and they killed him for it. They kill anyone who threatens them. That's what you need to understand, Victoria." Ethan's eyes were hard. This isn't a corporate scandal. This isn't white-collar crime. These people are murderers. And now they know exactly where we've been, what we've found, and who we're working with. Fear clawed at Victoria's throat, but underneath the fear something else was rising, something hot and sharp. Rage. "Then we make it count," she said. "Richard died trying to help me. Your wife died trying to expose them. I'm not going to let their deaths be meaningless." Ethan studied her face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there seemed to satisfy him. "There's one person who might be able to break the encryption on those files. Someone I've worked with before. But approaching her is risky. If Meridian finds out we've contacted her, they'll know exactly how close we are to exposing them." "Who is she?" "Elena's old colleague. A cyber specialist who works for the SEC. She helped Elena build the original case against Meridian before—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Her name is Catherine Wells. She's the only person alive who knows what Elena found, and she's been hiding ever since Elena died." "You know where she is?" "I've always known. She made me promise never to contact her unless it was absolutely necessary." Ethan looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. "I think we've reached that point." Victoria nodded. "Then let's find her." Ethan restarted the car. As they pulled back onto the road, Victoria realized something had changed between them. The professional distance, the careful boundaries, they were gone. They were partners now. Maybe something more. And whatever was coming next, they would face it together. Victoria's phone buzzed again. Another text from an unknown number. But this time, the message wasn't a threat. It was an address. And below it, 3 words that made her heart stop. "Your daughter knows." Victoria stared at the screen. Sophia. They had contacted Sophia. "Stop the car," she said. "Stop the car right now." Ethan pulled over immediately. "What is it?" Victoria showed him the message. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. "They reached out to my daughter. She's in Switzerland. She's alone. If they won't hurt her. Not yet." Ethan's voice was calm, analytical. Everything Victoria couldn't be right now. "She's leverage. They want you to panic. Want you to do something stupid." "Stupid like calling her? Like warning her? Like being a mother for once in my pathetic life?" "Victoria. No, you don't understand." Victoria was crying now. Tears she hadn't shed in years pouring down her face. "I abandoned her. I sent her away so I could focus on my company. I chose money and power over my own child. And now she's in danger because of me." Ethan reached back and took her hand. His grip was strong, steady. "Listen to me. We're going to protect her. But we have to be smart about this. If you call her from this phone, they'll trace the signal. They'll know exactly where we are." "Then what do I do? How do I keep her safe?" "We find Catherine Wells. We break the encryption. We expose Meridian before they can hurt anyone else." Ethan's eyes met hers, including Sophia. Victoria wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to drive to the airport and fly to Switzerland and wrap her arms around her daughter and never let go. But she knew he was right. The only way to protect Sophia was to end this, all of it. "Okay," she whispered. "But the second we have what we need, I'm calling her. I don't care about the risk." "I wouldn't expect anything less." Ethan started driving again. Victoria stared at her phone at the message that had turned her blood to ice. "Your daughter knows." "Knows what?" "That her mother was in danger. That powerful people wanted to destroy her. That Victoria Lane's CEO and absent parent was finally fighting for something other than profit margins." Victoria didn't know. But she was going to find out. and God help anyone who had threatened her child. Catherine Wells lived in a converted warehouse on the outskirts of Albany, surrounded by chain-link fences and security cameras that Victoria counted as they approached. 17 cameras, all positioned to eliminate blind spots. "She's paranoid," Victoria observed. "She's smart," Ethan corrected. "Elena trusted her completely. That trust almost got her killed when Elena died." They had driven through the night, stopping only once for gas at a station where the attendant looked half asleep and asked no questions. Lily had woken up somewhere around dawn, accepted a granola bar from Victoria, and immediately asked if they were going on another adventure. "Something like that," Ethan had told her. "But this adventure requires you to be very brave and very quiet. Can you do that for me?" Lily had nodded solemnly, and Victoria had felt her heart crack a little more at how easily this child adapted to danger. Now they sat outside Catherine's warehouse waiting. Ethan had sent a coded message 2 hours ago, something about a book they had both read, a reference only Catherine would understand. "What if she doesn't answer?" Victoria asked. "Then we find another way." But Victoria could hear the tension in Ethan's voice. There was no other way. Catherine Wells was their only hope. The phone buzzed. Ethan read the message and exhaled slowly. "She'll see us, but only you and me. Lily stays in the car. I'm not leaving her alone. Sarah will be here in 20 minutes. I called her while you were sleeping." Ethan was already getting out of the car. "My sister knows how to handle herself, and she loves Lily more than anything." Victoria looked at the little girl in the back seat. Lily was watching her with those two old eyes. "It's okay," Lily said. "Aunt Sarah brings the best snacks, and she lets me watch movies Daddy says are too grown up." Despite everything, Victoria almost smiled. "Your daddy doesn't know about that. It's our secret." Lily put a finger to her lips. "Don't tell." "I won't." Victoria reached back and squeezed Lily's hand. "We'll be back soon, I promise." "I know. Daddy always comes back." The certainty in that small voice was almost too much to bear. Victoria got out of the car before the tears could fall. The warehouse door opened before they reached it. A woman stood in the entrance, mid-50s, silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, eyes that scanned them both with the intensity of a laser. "You look like Hell Cross." "Good to see you too, Catherine." "And you must be the CEO everyone's trying to destroy." Catherine's gaze shifted to Victoria. "You're either very brave or very stupid to be working with him." "Maybe both," Victoria said. Something that might have been approval flickered across Catherine's face. "Come in. We don't have much time." The warehouse interior was nothing like Victoria expected. Where the outside suggested abandonment, the inside was a high-tech fortress. Multiple screens displayed news feeds, financial data, security footage from cameras Victoria hadn't even noticed. "You've been watching us," she realized. "Since you crossed into Albany. Can't be too careful." Catherine led them to a central workstation surrounded by servers and equipment Victoria didn't recognize. "Sit. Talk. Tell me why I should risk my life helping you." Ethan pulled out Victoria's laptop. 3 terabytes of data from Lane Industries' backup servers. Financial records, emails, board meeting recordings. Everything we need to expose Meridian except for the encrypted files. Catherine didn't touch the laptop. "What's in the encrypted files?" "We believe they contain the names and account numbers of Meridian's leadership, the people at the top of the pyramid." "You believe. You don't know." "No, we don't know." Ethan leaned forward. "But Elena believed. She told me once that she had found the key to everything, the file that would bring them all down. She was killed the day before she could show anyone." Catherine's expression didn't change, but Victoria noticed her hands had clenched into fists. "Elena was my friend," Catherine said quietly. "My best friend. We started at the SEC together, fresh out of college, ready to change the world." She laughed bitterly. "The world had other plans." "Then help us finish what she started." "Do you have any idea what you're asking?" I've spent 5 years hiding. 5 years looking over my shoulder waiting for them to come for me like they came for her. I had to leave everything, my career, my home, my family, just to stay alive. I know, Ethan said, and I know that every day you spend hiding is another day they win. Another day Elena's death means nothing. Catherine stood abruptly, walking to one of the windows. Victoria watched her silhouette against the gray light. She called me the night before she died. Catherine said, her voice barely audible. Told me she had found something big. Something that would expose people at the highest levels. She was excited, scared but excited. What did she find? I don't know. She wouldn't tell me over the phone. Said she'd show me in person the next day. Catherine's voice cracked. That day never came. Victoria thought about Richard Holloway, about the fear in his eyes when he warned her, about the injection marks on his arm. They killed her because she was close, Victoria said. They killed her because she had the evidence they were afraid of, and now they're trying to kill me for the same reason. Catherine turned to face her. Why should I care about you? You're just another CEO, another rich woman who probably didn't even know what was happening in her own company. You're right, I didn't know. I trusted people I shouldn't have. I was so focused on success that I didn't see the monster growing inside my own walls. Victoria met Catherine's gaze without flinching. But I see it now, and I'm willing to sacrifice everything to stop it. Everything, really? Catherine's laugh was harsh. You still have your freedom, your reputation damaged but not destroyed. Your daughter? My daughter is being threatened by these people right now. They sent me a message, told me she knows something. Victoria's voice shook. I haven't talked to her in weeks. I've been a terrible mother, but if anything happens to her because of this... She couldn't finish. The words stuck in her throat. Catherine studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, the hardness softening just slightly. You really mean it, she said. You'd give up everything. I already have. My company is gone. My reputation is in ruins. The FBI is looking for me. The only thing I have left is the chance to expose the people who did this. Victoria stepped closer. Help us, please. Not for me, for Elena, for every person they've destroyed, for your friend who deserved justice and never got it. Catherine was silent. The servers hummed. Somewhere outside, a truck rumbled past. The encryption Elena used was military grade, Catherine finally said. She created it herself. Said it was the only way to protect the evidence until she was ready to go public. Can you break it? I can try, but I need something first. Catherine walked to a locked cabinet and pulled out a small USB drive. This was Elena's personal backup. She gave it to me the week before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should destroy it. But you didn't. I couldn't. It was the last piece of her I had. Catherine handed the drive to Ethan. I never could bring myself to look at what was on it, but I think it might be the key. Elena always said the password was something only I would understand. Ethan took the drive carefully like it was made of glass. Thank you, Catherine. Don't thank me yet. We still have to break the encryption. Catherine moved to her workstation and began typing. This could take hours, maybe days. And every minute we spend here is another minute they could be closing in. Then we'd better get started, Victoria said. They worked through the morning. Catherine ran algorithm after algorithm against the encrypted files while Ethan analyzed patterns in the data they had already decrypted. Victoria helped where she could, answering questions about Lane Industries' financial structures, identifying names and transactions that seemed suspicious. Around noon, Ethan's sister Sarah arrived with Lily. The little girl ran to her father and wrapped her arms around his neck. Aunt Sarah bought McDonald's, and she let me get a milkshake. Did she now? Ethan shot his sister a look that was half exasperated, half grateful. She needed some joy, Ethan. Look at what you're putting her through. Sarah was a shorter, softer version of her brother. Same dark hair, same serious eyes, but with none of his sharp edges. Hi, you must be Victoria. Yes, thank you for coming. Thank me by keeping my brother alive. He has a bad habit of forgetting he's mortal. Sarah hugged Ethan tightly. Be careful, both of you. After Sarah left, taking Lily to a safe house only she knew about, the warehouse felt emptier, quieter. Victoria found herself missing the little girl's presence more than she expected. She's an amazing kid, Victoria said as they returned to work. She's her mother's daughter. Ethan's voice was soft. Elena used to say that Lily inherited all her best qualities and none of her flaws. What flaws? Stubbornness, obsession, the inability to walk away from a fight even when she should. Ethan almost smiled. Elena never knew when to quit. It's what made her brilliant at her job. And it's what got her killed. Victoria wanted to say something comforting, something that would ease the pain she heard beneath his words. But before she could speak, Catherine's voice cut through the silence. I found something. They gathered around her screen. Catherine was pointing at a line of code that meant nothing to Victoria. Elena's password. I finally figured it out. Catherine typed rapidly. It's not a word. It's a date. November 15th, 2019. What happened on November 15th? Victoria asked. That's the day we both testified before Congress about financial reform. We were terrified, but we did it anyway. Catherine's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Afterward, Elena said it was the proudest moment of her career, the day she felt like she was actually making a difference. She hit enter. The screen changed. Files began to decrypt one after another, flooding the display with names and numbers and documents that made Victoria's breath catch. Oh my God, Catherine whispered. Victoria stared at the screen. Names she recognized: senators, CEOs, judges, law enforcement officials, all of them connected to Meridian Capital through a web of shell companies and offshore accounts. But that wasn't what made her blood run cold. That's the Secretary of the Treasury, she said, pointing at one name. And that's the Director of the FBI. And that's the current President's Chief of Staff. Ethan's voice was flat. Elena found evidence of corruption at the highest levels of government. No wonder they killed her. Catherine was scrolling through the files, her face pale. This is everything. Every payment, every bribe, every person they've compromised. It goes back 20 years. Victoria felt the weight of what they had discovered pressing down on her. This wasn't just corporate fraud. This was a shadow government, a network of corrupt officials and powerful business people who controlled everything from the shadows. If we release this, she started. If we release this, they'll try to discredit us immediately. Ethan interrupted. Say the evidence is fabricated, that we're conspiracy theorists or criminals or Russian agents. Then how do we make people believe? Catherine turned to face them. We don't just release the evidence. We release it everywhere all at once to every major news outlet in the world. We make it impossible to suppress, impossible to spin. Brennan, Victoria realized. Daniel Brennan. He has contacts at every major newspaper and network. If anyone can coordinate a simultaneous release, I'll call him. Ethan was already reaching for his phone. But there's something else we need to do first. What? Ethan looked at Victoria with an expression she couldn't read. You need to testify, publicly, on camera. Before we release any of this, we need you to tell your story, how you were framed, what you discovered, why you're risking everything to expose the truth. Why me? Why not you or Catherine? Because you're the victim everyone can relate to. A successful woman who built something from nothing only to have it stolen by corrupt men in suits. Ethan's voice softened. Your story is the human element, Victoria. Without it, this is just numbers and names. With it, it's a crusade. Victoria thought about what that would mean. Going public, showing her face, admitting to the world that she had been fooled, manipulated, destroyed. It would require her to be vulnerable, to be human, to be everything she had spent 15 years pretending she wasn't. Okay, she said. I'll do it. There's one more thing you need to do first. Ethan handed her a phone, a burner untraceable. Call your daughter. Victoria stared at the phone. I thought you said it was too dangerous. I said it was dangerous to call from your own phone. This one is clean. They won't be able to trace it. Ethan's eyes met hers. You might not get another chance, Victoria. Say what you need to say. Victoria took the phone with trembling hands. She walked to a corner of the warehouse, away from Catherine and Ethan, away from the screens full of evidence and the weight of everything they were about to do. She dialed Sophia's number from memory. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Hello? Sophia's voice was cautious, suspicious. Sophia, it's Mom. Silence. Victoria could hear her daughter breathing. Mom, where are you? The FBI was here. They were asking questions about you. The news is saying. I know what the news is saying. It's not true. None of it is true. Then why are you running? If you're innocent, why don't you just... Because the people who framed me are more powerful than you can imagine. They've killed people, Sophia. They've destroyed lives, and they threatened to hurt you to get to me. More silence. When Sophia spoke again, her voice was smaller, younger. Mom, I'm scared. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. I know, baby. I'm scared too. But I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? I think so. Good. I need you to listen carefully. There's a woman named Sarah Cross. She's going to contact you within the next few hours. She's going to bring you somewhere safe. You need to go with her. Okay. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not your teachers, not your friends, no one. Who is Sarah Cross? How do you know her? Victoria looked at Ethan across the warehouse. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. She's the sister of someone who's helping me, someone I trust. You trust someone, that's new. Sophia's voice had a hint of her old sharpness, the anger that had been building for years. You never trusted anyone, not even Dad, not even me. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Victoria wiped her eyes. I was a terrible mother. I chose my company over you. I told myself I was building something for your future, but the truth is, I was just afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of being ordinary. Afraid of being the girl from the trailer park who never amounted to anything. I thought if I stopped working, stopped achieving, stopped proving myself, I would disappear. Victoria's voice broke. But the only thing I actually disappeared from was your life. Sophia didn't respond. Victoria could hear her crying. I don't expect you to forgive me. Victoria continued. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that everything I'm doing right now, all the risk, all the danger, it's for you. Because I finally understand that you're the only thing that matters. Not the company, not the money, not any of it. Mom, I love you, Sophia. I love you more than I ever knew how to say. And when this is over, if I survive this, I want to be your mother again. Really your mother. Not just someone who sends money and shows up at graduations. The silence stretched. Victoria held her breath. I love you too, Mom. Sophia's voice was thick with tears. Please don't die. I'll do my best, baby. I'll do my best. She ended the call before she could say anything else. Before she could make promises she might not be able to keep. When she turned around, Ethan was there. He didn't say anything, just opened his arms. Victoria walked into them, let herself be held, let herself cry. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. For what? For giving me a chance to say what I needed to say. Ethan's arms tightened around her. I know what it's like to have things left unsaid. I don't want that for you. Victoria pulled back slightly, looking up at his face. His eyes were soft in a way she had never seen before. Ethan, when this is over, don't. He shook his head. Don't make plans for after, not yet. We need to focus on surviving today. But I need you to know something. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever happens when we release this evidence, I need you to know that these past few days have changed me. You and Lily have shown me what I've been missing, what I threw away." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "When Elena was killed, I thought I would never feel anything again. I thought I had closed off that part of myself forever, buried it with her." His voice was rough. "Then you showed up on my doorstep in your designer suit, desperate and terrified, and something woke up. Something I thought was dead." "Ethan, I'm not good at this, Victoria. I don't know how to be vulnerable. I don't know how to let people in. But I want to try. With you." He pressed his forehead against hers. "If we survive this." "When?" Victoria corrected him. "When we survive this." She kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, two broken people testing the waters. Then it deepened, became something more desperate, more real. When they finally pulled apart, Catherine was watching them with a knowing smile. "About time," she said. "Now can we get back to saving the world?" Victoria laughed, really laughed for the first time in days. "Yes, let's save the world." They worked through the night preparing everything, the evidence, the testimony, the plan to release it all simultaneously across every major platform. Brennan arrived around midnight looking exhausted but determined. He had coordinated with journalists across 3 continents, all of them ready to publish the moment they received the files. "This is going to be the biggest story of the century," he said, reviewing the evidence. "Bigger than Watergate, bigger than Enron. This is the corruption that underlies everything. And tomorrow, we expose it all," Ethan said. Victoria looked around the warehouse at these people who had risked everything to help her. Catherine, who had come out of hiding after 5 years. Brennan, who had staked his legendary reputation on their evidence. Ethan, who had opened his heart after years of grief. She wasn't the same woman who had stood in her corner office 3 days ago, clutching an audit report and watching her world collapse. That woman had been afraid of losing her company, her reputation, her carefully constructed identity. This woman had already lost all of that, and she had found something better. Tomorrow, they would go to war against the most powerful people in the world. Tomorrow, they would risk everything on the hope that truth still mattered. But tonight, Victoria allowed herself one moment of peace, one moment of hope. She walked to the window and looked out at the dark sky. Somewhere out there, Sophia was waiting. Lily was safe with Sarah, and the evidence that would change everything was ready to be released. "You ready for tomorrow?" Ethan asked, coming to stand beside her. Victoria took his hand. "I've been ready my whole life," she said. "I just didn't know it until now." The morning came too fast, and not fast enough. Victoria stood in front of a mirror in Catherine's warehouse, staring at a woman she barely recognized. No designer suit, no perfect makeup, no armor of any kind. Just a simple blouse, dark slacks, and eyes that held more truth than she had shown the world in 15 years. "You ready?" Ethan asked from the doorway. "No." Victoria turned to face him. "But I'm going to do it anyway." Brennan had arranged everything. A press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. Every major network would be there. Every newspaper, every journalist who had ever dreamed of breaking the story of the century. Victoria would tell her story first. Then Brennan would release the evidence simultaneously to outlets across the globe. By the time Meridian realized what was happening, it would be too late to stop it. That was the plan anyway. "They're going to try to stop us," Catherine said, joining them. She had been monitoring communications all night, tracking any signs that Meridian knew what they were planning. "I'm seeing increased chatter on encrypted channels. They know something is coming." "Do they know what?" "Not yet, but they're mobilizing. I've identified at least 3 teams in the DC area that could be used for intervention." Victoria felt ice in her veins. "You mean assassination?" "I mean they're not going to let you walk into that press conference and destroy everything they've built." Catherine handed Ethan a tablet showing security footage. "We need a plan." Ethan studied the images. His jaw tightened. "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." "Tell me anyway." "We don't go to the press conference." Victoria stared at him. "What? After everything we've done, you want to just—" "I want to go somewhere they're not expecting, somewhere we control the environment." Ethan turned the tablet to show a building Victoria recognized. The SEC headquarters. Catherine still has contacts there. People Elena trusted. People who can protect us while you give your testimony. The SEC. Brennan shook his head. That's a government building. If Meridian has people inside, they have people everywhere. But the SEC is where Elena worked. It's where she gathered the evidence that got her killed. There's a poetic justice in bringing this full circle. Ethan looked at Victoria. And it's the last place they'll expect us to go. Victoria considered the plan. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but there was something right about it. Something that felt like closure. "Do it," she said. "Make the arrangements." They left the warehouse at noon. Catherine stayed behind to coordinate the electronic release, her fingers flying across keyboards as she prepared to send the evidence to servers around the world the moment Victoria began speaking. "The second you start your testimony, I hit send," Catherine said. "Within 5 minutes, every major outlet on the planet will have the files. Within an hour, it will be impossible to suppress. And if something goes wrong, then I release everything anyway. Your testimony would have been powerful, but the evidence speaks for itself." Catherine hugged Victoria tightly. "Elena would have liked you. She always admired women who fought back. Tell her I said thank you when you see her again." "I will. Someday." The drive to Washington took 3 hours. Ethan drove while Victoria sat in the passenger seat reviewing her notes, practicing what she would say. Brennan was in the back, making calls confirming that journalists would be redirected to the SEC building instead of the press club. "They're confused," Brennan reported, "but they're coming. Promise of the biggest story of their careers tends to motivate people." Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Sophia is safe. We're watching from a secure location. She says to tell you she's proud of you." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Proud. When was the last time her daughter had said that about her? "Good news?" Ethan asked. "The best news." Victoria showed him the message. "My daughter is proud of me." "She should be. What you're about to do takes more courage than most people have in a lifetime." "I'm terrified." "I know." Ethan reached over and took her hand. "I'll be right there with you, the whole time." They arrived at the SEC building at 3 p.m. Catherine's contacts had cleared the way. Victoria and Ethan were escorted through a side entrance past security checkpoints into a conference room that had been hastily converted into a press area. Cameras were already set up. Journalists filled the seats. Victoria recognized faces from every major network anchors who normally sat behind desks in New York, correspondents who covered wars and elections and scandals. They were all here. For her. "Ms. Lane." A young woman with an SEC badge approached her. "I'm Agent Morrison. I worked with Elena Cross. It's an honor to help finish what she started." "Thank you. For everything." "Don't thank me yet. We're getting reports of unusual activity outside the building. Multiple vehicles. Unknown occupants." Agent Morrison's expression was grim. "We've increased security, but if Meridian is making a move, then we need to start now." Victoria squared her shoulders. "Before they can stop us." She walked to the front of the room. The cameras swung toward her. Lights blazed. The murmur of conversation died. Victoria Lane stood before the world, stripped of everything except the truth. "My name is Victoria Lane," she began. 3 days ago, I was the CEO of Lane Industries, a Fortune 500 company that I built from nothing over 15 years. Today, I am a fugitive accused of crimes I didn't commit, hunted by people who will stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. She paused, letting the words sink in. I'm here to tell you the truth. Not just about what happened to me, but about a shadow organization called Meridian Capital that has infiltrated every level of our government and our economy. An organization that has killed to protect its secrets. An organization that murdered a woman named Elena Cross 5 years ago because she got too close to exposing them. Victoria saw Ethan standing at the back of the room. His eyes were fixed on her, steady, unwavering. Elena Cross was a hero. She was an SEC investigator who dedicated her life to fighting corruption. She found evidence of a vast conspiracy, politicians, judges, law enforcement officials, all compromised by Meridian. And for that, she was killed. Her death was made to look like an accident. Black ice. Poor visibility. A tragedy. Victoria's voice hardened. It was murder. And today, I'm going to prove it. She began to lay out the evidence. Shell companies, offshore accounts, or forged documents. The systematic embezzlement of $23 million from her company, designed to frame her and clear the way for Meridian to take control. The journalists were silent, scribbling notes, recording every word. Marcus Webb, my former CFO, was a Meridian operative. He spent 8 years building my trust, learning my signatures, setting up the framework for exactly this moment. When I discovered the truth, he disappeared. But he left behind a trail that leads directly to the people at the top of this conspiracy. Victoria nodded to Brennan, who was standing near a screen at the side of the room. What you're about to see are the names and financial records of Meridian's leadership. Senators, cabinet officials, law enforcement executives, all of them taking money in exchange for protection, access, and silence. Brennan hit a button. The screen filled with documents. The room erupted. Journalists shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Someone was already on their phone calling their network. But Victoria wasn't done. I want to be clear about something, she said, raising her voice above the chaos. I am not a hero. I was a victim who got lucky. Lucky enough to meet a man named Ethan Cross, who has spent 5 years investigating his wife's murder. Lucky enough to find people willing to risk their lives to expose the truth. She looked at Ethan. This isn't about me. It's about every person Meridian has destroyed. Every whistleblower who was silenced. Every journalist who was threatened. Every ordinary citizen who has wondered why the powerful never seem to face consequences for their crimes. Victoria took a breath. Today that changes. Today the truth comes out. And no amount of money, no amount of power, no amount of intimidation will ever bury it again. The room exploded into applause. Journalists were on their feet shouting questions, trying to be heard over each other. Then the lights went out. Victoria felt someone grab her arm in the darkness. Ethan's voice was in her ear. Move, now! They were running before she fully understood what was happening. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in red. Victoria could hear shouts, screams, the sound of breaking glass. They're inside, Agent Morrison said, appearing beside them with a weapon drawn. Multiple hostiles. We need to get you out of here. The evidence. Catherine released it the moment you started speaking. It's already spreading across the internet. They can't stop it now. Victoria felt a surge of relief. Whatever happened next, the truth was out. Nothing could change that. They moved through corridors, past offices where workers were taking cover under desks. Victoria heard gunfire somewhere behind them, sharp cracks that echoed off the walls. This way, Agent Morrison said, leading them toward a stairwell. There's a vehicle waiting in the underground garage. They burst through the door and started descending. Victoria's legs were burning her lungs, screaming for air, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. 2 flights down, they ran into trouble. 2 men in tactical gear were coming up the stairs. They raised their weapons the moment they saw Morrison. Everything happened in seconds. Morrison fired first. 1 man went down. The second man's bullet caught Morrison in the shoulder, spinning her around. Ethan was moving before Victoria could process what was happening. He tackled the second man, wrestling for the weapon. They crashed against the wall, the gun clattering down the stairs. Victoria grabbed it. She had never held a weapon before, never pointed one at another human being. But when the man threw Ethan off and lunged toward her, she didn't hesitate. She pulled the trigger. The man fell. Victoria stood frozen, staring at what she had done. Her hands were shaking so badly the gun nearly slipped from her fingers. "Victoria." Ethan's voice cut through the shock. "Victoria, look at me." She looked. "You did what you had to do. He would have killed us both." Ethan took the gun from her hands. "We need to keep moving." Morrison was back on her feet, clutching her wounded shoulder. "I'm fine. Let's go." They made it to the garage. A black SUV was waiting, engine running. Victoria didn't know who was driving and didn't care. She climbed in Ethan beside her, and they were moving before the door was fully closed. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house. FBI is already rounding up Meridian's people based on the evidence you released." The driver, a woman Victoria didn't recognize, glanced in the rearview mirror. "You did it, Ms. Lane. You actually did it." Victoria looked at Ethan. He was breathing hard, a cut on his forehead dripping blood, but he was smiling. "We did it," she said. The hours that followed were a blur. FBI agents, more interviews, statements, lawyers. Victoria lost track of how many times she told her story, how many questions she answered, how many documents she signed. But through it all, Ethan was there, a steady presence at her side, a reminder that she wasn't alone anymore. By midnight, the scope of what they had accomplished was becoming clear. 14 arrests, including 2 senators and the chief of staff to the president. Marcus Webb had been apprehended at a private airport in New Jersey, trying to flee the country. Patricia Morrison, the board member who had been planning to take over Lane Industries, was in custody. And at the top of the list, the man who had ordered Elena Cross's death, Harrison Mercer, the shadowy billionaire who had built Meridian Capital from the ashes of his father's legitimate investment firm and transformed it into a machine for corruption. "He's not talking," Agent Morrison reported. Her shoulder was bandaged, her arm in a sling, but she had refused to leave. "But with the evidence you provided, he doesn't need to. We have enough to put him away for the rest of his life." Victoria felt something loosen in her chest. Justice. After everything, there would be justice. "What about Elena's case?" Ethan asked. His voice was carefully controlled, but Victoria could hear the emotion underneath. "Can you prove he ordered her murder?" Morrison nodded slowly. "We found communications in the encrypted files. Mercer personally authorized what they called a permanent solution to the Elena Cross problem. The order was given 36 hours before her death." Ethan closed his eyes. Victoria reached for his hand. "It's over," she said softly. "You found the truth. Elena can rest now." Ethan didn't respond, but his fingers tightened around hers, and she felt him trembling. After 5 years, the man who had killed his wife would finally face justice. The truth that had consumed him, driven him, defined him, it was finally complete. Victoria wondered what would come next for him. What would Ethan Cross become when he wasn't chasing ghosts anymore? She hoped she would be there to find out. 3 months later. The brownstone in Brooklyn looked different in spring. Flowers bloomed in window boxes that had been empty when Victoria first arrived on that snowy night. The Christmas tree was gone, replaced by new furniture, bright curtains, signs of a house being lived in rather than merely occupied. Victoria stood on the stoop, hesitating. "Mom, are you going to ring the bell or just stand there?" Sophia came up beside her, rolling her eyes with the theatrical exasperation that only a teenager could muster. At 17 now, she was taller than Victoria, with her father's eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. "I'm nervous," Victoria admitted. "You testified before Congress. You took down a criminal empire. You literally shot a guy." Sophia reached past her and rang the bell. "This is dinner. With your boyfriend. You'll survive." "He's not my—" The door opened. Lily Cross stood in the entrance wearing a dress covered in flowers and a smile that could have lit up Manhattan. You came, Daddy said you might be late because Sophia's flight got delayed, but you're actually early and I made cookies and I only burned 2 of them and... Lily. Ethan appeared behind his daughter. Breathe. Sorry, I'm just excited. Lily grabbed Victoria's hand and pulled her inside. Come see. We redecorated the living room. I picked the colors. Victoria allowed herself to be dragged through the house, catching Ethan's eye as she passed. He smiled a real smile, the kind she had rarely seen in those early days. He smiled a lot more now. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind: congressional hearings, depositions, endless meetings with lawyers and prosecutors. Victoria had testified 4 times each appearance, peeling back another layer of Meridian's corruption. Her company was gone, seized, restructured, eventually sold to a consortium that promised to restore its reputation. Victoria had received nothing from the sale. Everything she had built for 15 years, erased. But she had gained something else. She had gained Sophia. After years of boarding schools and distant video calls, they were finally learning to be mother and daughter again. It was awkward, sometimes painful. Victoria had to face how much damage her absence had caused, how many moments she had missed. But they were trying. Every day they were trying. And she had gained Ethan, not the cold, distant man who had opened his door to her 3 months ago. This Ethan laughed. This Ethan took Lily to movies and made breakfast on Sunday mornings, and sometimes pulled Victoria close for no reason other than wanting to feel her near him. He was healing. They both were. Dinner's almost ready, Ethan said, joining them in the newly decorated living room. Lily insisted on making her famous mac and cheese. 3 cheeses, Lily announced proudly. Like Daddy taught me. I remember. Victoria smiled at the memory of that first dinner when she had been so lost and broken, and this little girl had tried to comfort her. It was delicious. Sophia was already sitting on the couch looking uncomfortable in the way teenagers look when they're surrounded by adults being happy. But Victoria had seen her warming up to Lily over the past few weeks. The 2 girls were unlikely friends, Sophia with her Swiss boarding school polish, Lily with her Brooklyn street smarts. But they were finding common ground, usually in making fun of their parents. So, Sophia said, affecting casual interest. When's the wedding? Victoria choked on air. Ethan suddenly became very interested in checking something in the kitchen. Lily told me about the ring. Sophia continued, enjoying their discomfort. The one Ethan's been hiding in his desk drawer for the past month. Lily? Ethan spun around. You weren't supposed to. It was an accident. I was looking for tape, and I found the box, and you told Sophia. She asked if you guys were serious. I had to tell her something. Victoria watched the chaos unfold, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. This was what she had been missing. Not the power, not the success, not the corner office with its views of Manhattan. Family. Connection. People who loved her for who she was, not what she could give them. Ethan, Victoria's voice cut through the noise. Is it true? Is there a ring? The kitchen went silent. Ethan walked slowly back into the living room. His expression was a mixture of embarrassment, frustration, and something else. Something that made Victoria's heart beat faster. I was going to wait, he said. I had a plan. Dinner, candles, a speech I've been practicing for weeks. A speech. About how you crashed into my life when I thought it was over. About how you showed me that it's possible to lose everything and still find something worth fighting for. Ethan reached into his pocket. About how I never expected to love anyone again after Elena, and how you proved me wrong. He held out a small velvet box. I was going to say all of that, but apparently, my daughter has other plans. I said I was sorry, Lily protested. It's fine. Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. The speech is nice, but I don't need speeches. What do you need? Victoria looked at him. At this man who had saved her life, saved her daughter's life, helped her find the truth about Meridian. At this man who had lost so much and still found the courage to love again. "I need you," she said simply. "Just you." Ethan opened the box. A simple diamond ring caught the light. "Victoria Lane, former CEO. Current pain in my ass. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Victoria laughed through her tears. "That's your proposal. Pain in your ass." "I told you I had a speech. You're the one who skipped to the ending." "Daddy, just ask her properly." Lily was bouncing with impatience. Ethan got down on one knee. His eyes never left Victoria's face. "Victoria, I love you. I love your strength and your stubbornness, and the way you've learned to let people in after spending so long keeping them out. I love that you make my daughter laugh. I love that you're learning to be a mother again to Sophia. I love that you chose to rebuild yourself instead of running away." He took her hand. "Will you marry me?" Victoria looked at the ring, at Ethan, at Lily's hopeful face, and Sophia's pretend casual expression, and the life that was waiting for her if she just had the courage to say yes. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Lily screamed and launched herself at them. Sophia tried to maintain her teenage cool, but couldn't hide her smile. Ethan slipped the ring onto Victoria's finger and pulled her close. "You know this doesn't mean you get to redecorate," he murmured against her hair. "Too late. Sophia and I already have plans." "God help me." They kissed while the girls made gagging noises and pretended to be disgusted. It was perfect. Later after dinner, 3 cheese mac and cheese only slightly overcooked after the dishes were washed, and Lily was asleep, and Sophia had retreated to the guest room to text her friends about the engagement. Victoria and Ethan sat on the front stoop watching the city lights. "What are you thinking?" Ethan asked. Victoria considered the question. 3 months ago, she had stood on this same stoop, terrified and desperate, wearing a designer suit that felt like armor too thin for the battle ahead. Now she sat here in borrowed jeans, an engagement ring on her finger, surrounded by people who loved her. "I'm thinking about second chances," she said finally. "About how I almost missed mine." "What do you mean?" "If Richard Holloway hadn't talked to me that night, I never would have understood what I was up against. If you hadn't answered your phone, I would have faced this alone. If Lily hadn't asked if I was your girlfriend." Victoria smiled at the memory. There were so many moments where everything could have gone differently. So many times I almost gave up. "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." Victoria leaned against his shoulder. "Because somewhere along the way, I realized that losing everything wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of what? Of actually living. Not just surviving, not just achieving, not just proving to the world that the girl from the trailer park could make it. Actually living. Being present. Being real." Victoria looked at him. "Being loved." Ethan pulled her closer. "Elena would have liked you," he said quietly. "She always said I needed someone who could challenge me, someone who wouldn't let me disappear into my work. I'll try to live up to that. You already do." They sat in comfortable silence as the city hummed around them. Somewhere a dog barked. A car horn honked. A plane traced its lights across the sky, carrying people to destinations Victoria would never know. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we build something new, together." Ethan kissed her forehead. "A family. A future. A life that neither of us expected, but both of us deserve." Victoria thought about the road ahead. There would be challenges. More trials as Meridian's members faced justice. More headlines as the full scope of the conspiracy continued to unravel. More moments where the past would try to drag her back into darkness. But she wouldn't face any of it alone. She had Ethan. She had Lily. She had Sophia. She had a chance to become the mother, the partner, the person she had always been too afraid to be. And for the first time in 15 years, Victoria Lane wasn't afraid of the future. She was ready for it. The next morning, Victoria woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Lily's laughter drifting up from the kitchen. Sophia was already downstairs helping Ethan make pancakes and pretending to be annoyed by Lily's constant chatter. Victoria stood at the top of the stairs watching them. Her family. The word felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. She had spent so long running from connection, so long building walls to protect herself from pain. Now those walls were gone, and what remained was something raw and vulnerable and impossibly precious. "Mom?" Lily spotted her and waved enthusiastically. "Daddy made chocolate chip pancakes. Your favorite?" Victoria smiled. "How did you know they're my favorite?" "Sophia told me. She said you used to make them for her when she was little." Victoria looked at her daughter. Sophia shrugged, but there was something soft in her expression. A memory of better times. A hope for better times ahead. "That was a long time ago," Victoria said, coming down the stairs. "I'm not sure I remember how." "Then it's time to relearn." Ethan handed her a spatula. "Lily will supervise." "I'm very good at supervising," Lily confirmed. They made pancakes together. Sophia showed Victoria how to flip them without making a mess. Lily added exactly 7 chocolate chips to each one she had counted. Ethan stood back and watched a quiet contentment on his face that made Victoria's heart ache with gratitude. This was what she had been fighting for all along. Not the company, not the money, not the power or the prestige or the corner office with its breathtaking views. This messy, imperfect, beautiful thing called family. After breakfast, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. "It's Brennan. He wants to know if you're available for an interview." Another one. Last one, he promises. A retrospective piece. How the woman who lost everything found something better. Victoria thought about it. More cameras, more questions, more reliving of the worst and best moments of her life. But also an opportunity. A chance to tell her story one final time. To put a proper ending on the chapter of her life that had begun with an audit report and ended with an engagement ring. "Tell him I'll do it," she said. "But I have conditions." "What conditions?" Victoria looked around the kitchen. At Lily doing dishes. At Sophia scrolling through her phone. At Ethan waiting for her answer. "I want you there. All of you. I want the world to see that this story isn't just about taking down criminals. It's about what comes after. What we build when we stop running and start living." Ethan smiled. "I think that can be arranged." The interview aired 2 weeks later. Brennan had done what he promised, a retrospective piece that captured not just the scandal, but the redemption. Victoria told her story one final time with Ethan beside her and their daughters watching from across the room. "What's next for you?" Brennan asked as they wrapped up. Victoria considered the question. There had been offers, book deals, speaking engagements, a proposal to return to the business world to rebuild what she had lost. But that wasn't what she wanted anymore. "I'm starting a foundation," she said, "for whistleblowers and fraud victims. People who are targeted for telling the truth. People like Elena Cross who pay with their lives for standing up to corruption." The Elena Cross Foundation, Brennan noted. "That's a powerful legacy." "It's the least I can do. Elena died trying to expose the truth. Her work made my survival possible. Now it's my job to make sure her sacrifice meant something." Victoria looked at Ethan. He was watching her with an expression of pure love. "And personally," Brennan pressed, "any plans for the future?" Victoria smiled. "I'm getting married. I'm learning to be a mother again. I'm building a life that isn't defined by how much I achieve or how many people I impress." She took Ethan's hand. "I'm learning that the most powerful thing you can do is let yourself be loved." The interview ended. The cameras stopped rolling. Brennan shook their hands and promised to send them a copy of the final edit. And then it was over. The scandal, the investigation, the trials and hearings, and endless aftermath. All of it finally completely over. Victoria walked out of the studio into a spring afternoon that smelled like possibility. Ethan was beside her. Sophia and Lily were already arguing about where to get lunch. She had lost everything she thought mattered, and she had found everything that actually did. The girl from the trailer park in rural Ohio had become a Fortune 500 CEO, had been framed for crimes she didn't commit, had helped expose one of the largest corruption scandals in American history. But none of that was who she really was. Who she really was stood in the sunshine, surrounded by the family she had chosen and been chosen by, ready to build a future she had never imagined possible. Victoria Lane was finally home, and she was never running again.